Namo Amitabha Buddha. Hello everyone. So let's continue with reincarnation cases which happened in the Pingyang village in China. So in the book 100 Reincarnation Cases in Pingyang village, it also recorded cases where some people even remember there were two or even a few different spirits that lived in the same body. And what happened after death was that these different spirits can actually come out and reincarnate into different beings. So this is also possible. Sometimes we may have different spirits that live in the same body. So usually those beings with very strong karmic connection with you, and then they want to follow you or maybe collect some karmic debt or other things. But we Nianfo practitioners should not be too concerned about this. We should not be worried about things like being possessed and all that, because if we can keep the positive mindset, if we can keep the mindfulness of Amitabha Buddha constantly, then we should not be worried about other spirits come and bother us. They don't dare. Even if they come, we just keep the mindfulness of Amitabha Buddha and we can stay centered and grounded. And no other spirits will dare to disturb you if you recite the name of Amitabha Buddha or if you recite the name of Guan Yin, as you will also have the protection of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Okay, so in this case, there was this man called Shi Jun, and Shi Jun died from an illness when he was only 36. And he left his young wife and also a 4-year-old son and a 1-year-old daughter. So at the time of his death, a friend of him was actually taking care of him. And within 3 months of his death, the friend's wife happened to give birth to a little boy, and they named the little boy Shi Jun. So very similar name except just different character and pronunciation. So Shi Jun was actually the reincarnation of Shi Jun. And when Shi Jun was just a little boy, he could recall that he was actually the reincarnation of Shi Jun. And he would tell his parents who were his friends in his past life. And his previous wife knew that her previous husband had reincarnated as little Shi Jun, so she also came to see him. And when little Shi Jun saw his previous wife, he said nothing, but he just kept crying and crying. And we haven't finished the story yet. So in the year 1988, which was 16 years after Shi Jun had passed, in a nearby village, a boy called Lu was born. And since a young age, when Lu could start to speak, he said his past life was actually Shi Jun. And he said, but he was the secondary soul who also lived in the same body, and he also knew where the primary soul had reincarnated into. So after Shi Jun had reincarnated as Shi Jun, this secondary soul decided to just guard the tomb, guard the dead body for 15 years. So strong attachment to the physical body for the secondary soul. And only when his previous wife came to sweep the tomb after 15 years, he decided to let go of the body and also to reincarnate. So he followed the wife on her way home after she came to sweep the tomb. But on midway, he saw another family where the woman happened to be pregnant about 7 or 8 months, and he decided to stay and reincarnated into this family. So really fascinating stories, and in this book it also recorded a few cases like that. And I remember reading there was one case where the same body, they had 6 different spirits, and each of them they went their own separate ways after death. If you're interested in learning more about these cases, feel free to go and read the book. And another case recorded in this book, and also very famous reincarnation case in China, was the case of Shi Shuangren. So Shi Shuangren was born in the Pingyang village in this lifetime. So people who live in the Pingyang village are the Kan ethnic group. So the Kam is a minority ethnic group in China where they speak their own dialect. They do not speak Mandarin, which is mostly spoken by Han Chinese, also the majority of Chinese. So Shi Shuangren in her previous life was actually Han Chinese, but in this life she somehow reincarnated into the Kam ethnic group. And in this lifetime, Shi Shuangren, despite not having studied so much in the school, she could speak fluent Mandarin, which really no one had taught her. She said it was really from past life. And in this life, despite being born in a Kam village, she was not accustomed to the Kam culture nor the language. She said she could speak much better Mandarin than the Kam dialect. And also she did not know how to wrap her hair the Kam way, so every time the neighbor had to come over to help her tie her hair according to the local custom. So she felt very much frustrated, and she often looked over the windows to see the town nearby where she used to live. And when she went to primary school in this life, just on the first day, when the teacher called out the names of the students, she immediately recognized her previous son and daughter. So they became classmates in this life, but her previous son was actually 10 months older than her in this life. So at the beginning, she did not dare to go out and talk to them, but she always bring like candies and treats and to leave underneath the tables for her previous son and daughter. And after a while, because she kept talking about her past life with other people, so all the classmates knew, and also the son and the daughter also knew about it. So the family invited her to come over, sort of try to verify her identity, and Shi Shuangren could give all the detailed accounts about what happened in the house, and she could give really private information. For instance, like the son, her husband in the previous life, liked to sing when he was taking a shower. So really private information like this. And in the end, everybody believed she was indeed a reincarnation of their parents. And Shi Shuangren said she also remembered clearly how she died in her previous life. So one day she went out to plant some beans, and in the fish pond where she was washing her feet, she got poisoned. And when she came home, her whole body felt very itchy, and she had a fever for 3 days. And after 3 days, she felt she was floating up. So the consciousness had left the physical body and just floating up, and that she died just like that. But she said she could see and hear clearly what other people were doing while her consciousness already left her body. And the consciousness went outside of the room, and then she saw lots of people were climbing the mountains. So she was curious, and she also followed them to climb the mountains. So my guess was that she climbed over the mountain and then came to the Pingyang village, and she found a family to reincarnate. And when she was about 2 years old, while she was just exploring on the floor, and she heard the people speak downstairs, all of a sudden it just dawned on her that she had found the wrong place. And immediately she became really anxious and said, "This was not the place I was familiar with. I have found the wrong place." And she's still very much attached to her old life. In 1 week, if I didn't see my 2 children, I felt empty inside and always want to go there. And she is just totally unaccustomed to the Kam people's way of living. And out of all the 100 reincarnation cases, so 90 plus were beings who reincarnated just in the same village the whole time. They were all from the Kam ethnic group. And only 3 were from the Han Chinese. And there was one whose previous life was Japanese, as he was in the nearby village at that time. And also 6 of them where their past lives were animals. And we see in a lot of these reincarnation cases, people don't reincarnate too far away from where they were, because most of them, they have attachment to where they came from. And if they can still reincarnate back again in the human realm or in the animal realm or even the ghost realm, most of them would choose to not go too far away from where they used to be, also due to their attachment and the habits formed from the past. So in the next video, I will share a few more cases where animals reincarnated into humans.